Good morning. It's Laura. Well, it may not be morning. Depends where you are. Welcome, live viewers. Welcome, replay viewers. I'm excited. I wasn't really planning. I'm going to just jump right in. I want to talk to you about color theory, which, I didn't even know what that was before I went to design school. I recently picked up, I'm like obsessed with paint boxes, so I have a whole bunch of different watercolor paint boxes. Hello! My eyes don't adjust. Hello, wait, is that Tina by any chance? Because I was just watching you on Facebook and it inspired me to come on. Is that Tina? I need to get my glasses on, I guess, because I can see my notebook, but I can't read comments very well. My eyes don't seem to adjust back and forth so well. So what I'm going to do, I just have all these great boxes. I'm going to have to come back and read like who's who here. I really appreciate your comments and hearts though. I appreciate it so much. It's the live part that makes it fun. So this is my Schminke box. Of like watercolors. I usually use gouache because it's thicker and more opaque. You can see how sheer these are, but these are really great quality, and the boxes are great quality. So this brand is Schminke. This brand is Prima Marketing, and I have several of their boxes. Each one has a slightly different palette of colors, and I love those too, just saying. Paint sets on the go, great, right? They're so great to have, little, easy to hold if you're working out on the go. And there's no sharp edges on these boxes. They're really nicely designed. And you can also, add and subtract different paint colors into the palettes. But the reason I decided to do a color theory talk today, hey everybody, there's a link in my bio if you want to learn more about me. I picked these up at my local Michael's because I do live in the suburbs. I'm like an hour and a half outside of New York City. So the closest art supply store I have is Michael's. And this is the, I just put the box away. No, here it is, the Jane Davenport. There's 2 boxes of paints you can get with the Jane Davenport paint sets. Where's her name? Well, anyway, they're really cute presentation. Come in a beautiful box, and they come in 2 boxes. So this one is called Neutrals, and that's the one that led me to decide to talk with you today. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other one that they have that's also the same brand, Jane Davenport, is the Brights. So these are very radiant colors. They have like a personality of their own. As a matter of fact, just in case you're curious, these are the colors from the Brights box. I was just like exploring the box when I did this. But the reason I want to talk about this box and color theory is because I was noticing, especially because I'm a fashion illustrator, I am obsessed with skin tones, because no matter what I'm drawing, it always has skin tone in it because it's always people. So this box called Neutrals happens to, I was analyzing, I was like, oh, wait a second. Hi, everybody. Welcome for hopping on. I love that it has all these colors for mixing skin. Thanks for the hearts. All these colors for mixing skin. I mean, even if I just had, the dark brown, the Naples yellow, that's pretty much all I need. I usually recommend that you have Van Dyke brown and Naples yellow to mix any kind of skin you want. Yes, there's all these earth tones. You can get a full range of ethnicities here by mixing these colors. And then what do? I realized they give you 3 primaries, red, yellow, blue. Well, blue, red, yellow. So you can pretty much mix a full range of colors out of that. And then they give you black, gray, white. Black, white, gray. My tongue and my paintbrush are not like linked up properly today. So the interesting thing about that is really if you have primaries and black, white, and gray, you have the foundation for talking all about color theory. So let's get right to it. Ta-da! This is just a face I did. I'm sharing that because I did it with this kit. I can't say I used all the colors because I don't think I did, but I did this in a few minutes. It's There's a time-lapse video of it on my Fashion Illustration Tribe Facebook page. Not on my YouTube, and in my Facebook group and on my timeline, so if you want to check it out. So, I don't know where to start with you, but if you're new to this stuff, if you're new to color theory is crazy powerful and changes your life, changes the way you see, changes the way you think about color, and it's really empowering. Whoops. Color theory is kind of like the how and the why, like what's happening behind the scenes when you look at colors. One of the most important things about it is to realize that, sorry, I'm trying to pull this out, the color is relative. So every color you ever see is responding to the colors next to it. I think some people call that local color. What was my point about that? Is that so you can't really just take a color at face value. It's always interacting, and there are rules about how it's interacting. So that is really empowering to learn about. So the first thing you want to learn about if you're working with color is actually to not work with color, but to work with black. So black is your foundation, because with black you can learn about tone. So tone takes you from pitch black. Oop, let's adjust. Pitch black all the way to, let's see, you know, if you add more and more water and more water, you're going to get lighter and lighter and lighter tonality of, right? So this is what we call a wash. When it dries, it's going to be lighter, but this is the pitch black, and as I drag it out, you know, it's going to get lighter and lighter. And you can even, you know, keep going by adding more and more water to it. So, you know, you're going to get a whole range. Sorry about the reflected light. That makes it a little confusing. But a whole range out to like plain water. Right? So, light to dark. So, what does that mean? Well, one thing to always think about if you're working with paint, which we always do so much in fashion illustration, is that the darker color, I think of pigment in the paint as like powder, little tiny dots, little flecks of color, right? So a teaspoon of water here is loaded with pigment, whereas a teaspoon of water up here only has a few dots of pigment floating in it. And that's the difference. And what happens is with color theory, there's so many ways we can take this. I mean, one is to know, let's say, I'm gonna pull out the gray. Color theory is so fascinating. I get overwhelmed even thinking about it. I'm gonna take the basic gray, unmixed, okay? And I'm gonna put a square here and a square here. And the important thing you need to know is that it's the exact same gray both times. Exact same gray. Make a little square. Normally I would wait for something like this to dry before I do anything else. But let me do a few. I'm going to put that. Okay. Then I'm going to take that same gray. And just bear with me because the lesson comes in a minute. This is like the setup. So again, I'm using unmixed gray so that it's definitely the same color everywhere. And what I'm going to show you is that even though it's the same color everywhere, it's going to look different when it's near different colors. And that's the magic and the reality of color theory. And while I'm just doing this random painting, I'm going to say that as a fashion teacher, people often ask me, you know, teach me about color, teach me how to use color. And I will tell you that I won't teach you how to use, like this I'll teach you, like the objective, you know, what color does. But color is your personal spin. Like every single student I've ever had has had their own sense of color. So they, everyone uses color differently, and it gives a different emotion and a different power. So if I was looking at a, let's say someone's fashion portfolio because I wanted to hire them or something, I would want to know whether they had control over color, like whether they were able to match their swatches to their paint, which you would learn about that through what I'm teaching you now. But the colors you actually choose for your designs, that's totally personal, totally personal. And I would never teach you what colors you should or shouldn't use together. The best thing you do is you just keep creating things that you like. Okay, so wait, here we go. Here, we're going to get to some of the magic here. So these two gray boxes, shoot, they should be identical in size. I'm trying to do something on the fly that I've never done on the fly before, with watercolor, that is. So if these are exactly the same size, actually it doesn't matter the size on this one, it matters the size on that one. Okay. So these are both the same color. And now I'm going to surround one of them with black. And one of them I won't surround with black. In color theory, oh, that was not supposed to happen. Yeah, white. A wet on wet was not supposed to happen, but of course it was going to because my paints are wet. So this box is called the Neutrals box, and I love it so much because it has the 3 primaries, red, yellow, blue, and then it has the neutrals, black, white, gray, and then it has the whole range of skin tones. So it's like a dream for a fashion person like me. Okay. So what happens when you get this gray next to black? It starts to look lighter than it does when it's on white paper. Now, I don't know if you can see that or if you're experiencing that. I am definitely experiencing that right now. It's unfortunate that we got the bleed happening. I'm just trying to clean up those edges a little bit, which is just going to make it even clearer to you. You see that? Really, really, really? Yeah, so same color, looks lighter when surrounded by black. Now I know it bled as well, so it looks extra large, but it actually, in fact, will look larger when it's surrounded by black than when it's surrounded by white, because the lighter thing will look bigger. And that's like crazy fascinating to me. So when you hear people, you know, people who wearing black leggings with a white shirt, you know, is going to make their hips look narrower and their bust look wider, let's just say, or shoulders look wider if you were using this in fashion. But someone wearing white pants with a black top, the white pants are going to emphasize it and make the hips look wider and the legs look curvier, and will make their upper body look narrower, smaller, more contracted. So in fashion, let's say, you can distort the body or the perception of the body by what colors you choose to wear, or which colors you choose to put in different parts of an outfit. You know, sometimes you'll make a dress where you're using 2 different fabrics. You know, where you use the light color and where you use the dark color can make certain parts of the bodies look expanded or contracted, which is like super exciting. So this was exercise number 1, just to show you that gray on a white background is going to look darker than gray on a dark background. And over here, there's going to be, let me think. If I have 2 squares that are the same size, what was this next exercise? If I have a white square and a black square, which one do you think is going to look bigger? The white square or the black square? This is way more effective if I use a ruler, because then you know for a fact that they're exactly the same size. Whereas in this one, I'm just kind of talking you through it and I'm doing it freehand. But if each one of these squares was an inch square, which one looks bigger? Oh God, it's so obvious to me. Actually, it's working great. So I want to give you time to answer. but your black square looks smaller because black contracts and the white expands visually. So that's really, really, really important to pay attention to. And another thing to pay, so when we talk about this like dark to light, here we got dark to light with our paint by adding more water. You can also do the same by adding white instead of adding water. And that's how you get pastels. You could do that with any color. So I'm just going to pull up some blue right now. I don't even know if I've ever used this blue yet. Notice I twist my brush on my palette. If I dig it in and twist it in through the tip, I'm just going to be like killing the tip of my beautiful brush. I really like this brush. It's by the brand called Princeton, and it's called the Catalyst brush. It has a really, really, really firm tip. It's like every brush you buy has a different tip. I like this one because it feels almost like a magic marker. But what I want to show you is if I take my basic blue, I want to do it really opaque, meaning not sheer at all, like totally loaded with pigment. And then I can create new versions of it where I keep adding white paint to it. You can do this with any color and just go step by step, adding more white and more white and more white, and watch the color evolve. And those are called tints. They're also known as pastels, right? When you add white to a color. I love tints and pastels. They're so happy. And another important thing to notice that's not about color theory, but it's more about just paint, is that when you add white to paint, it takes on a really creamy feeling, which again, like for fashion, that would be really useful to note, because creamy feels warm and stuff, right? Like warm fabrics, woolens, sweaters, or sometimes you have a paint that just doesn't look opaque enough for whatever it is you want to do. Adding a little bit of white to your paint will definitely play up the opacity. So those are tints / pastels. Trying to go as light as I can, but I've dirtied my palette. So yeah, this is white with more blue, more blue, more blue, more blue, more blue. And I could do many more steps in between as well. Another interesting thing is something called, tone. So tone is when you add gray to a color. So I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm getting paint all over my notebook page. That's okay. So what happens if we start with that opaque blue again? Actually, not really, because I just realized I have some white stuck on my brush. I'm going to start with the plain opaque blue paint, and I can start adding gray to it. I mix up. Usually what I do, I'm not really doing it right now because of this kind of palette, but I usually, when I'm working with gouache and I'm doing fashion illustrations, I'll start with puddles of water. So this isn't much of a puddle at all. I'll usually, fill a pool on a palette with water, and then I'll load all my pigment into that pool or puddle and grow it from there. Okay, so that was my first one. There, I want to add more pigment to it. And then I can add gray to it. So the great thing, like I was saying, is that this box has gray. So when you're adding gray, you're actually adding black and white at the same time. So it's going to get creamier and lighter, but it's also going to get a little bit darker. So adding gray is really different than adding white. And you'll be able to see this because I've done both, so I'm kind of comparing the two. And actually at the far end of this is going to be just gray. Oh, that gray still has blue in it because my brush is pretty dirty. Oh, well. But just to give you a feel, it would be something like that. Well, so you're getting steps. You're getting a transition. These are shades. And if you draw digitally, I'll show you the same thing. When you use a color picker in any kind of an art app, it'll give you a big square. And in that square, you'll have like white, black, gray, and then the pure color. So let's say blue, right? And if you drag your color picker this way, it'll be blue plus white. If you drag your color picker this way, it's going to be blue plus black. And if you drag it this way, blue plus gray. And then you get all the variations in between. So this is what they're talking about when they're doing that. So we're going to go back to pure blue again. If I can find an empty well on my palette, we sure have used that up quickly. Go back to the pure blue. And fill a puddle with the pure blue. I put a lot of water, so now I'm going to need a lot of pigment with the blue. This is fun though. It's relaxing. If you do these exercises just because you've seen me do them here and you do them, at first you might think, well, that's a waste of time, but it really, really isn't, because this gives you an opportunity to get into your paints and realize the ins and outs of like how they're reacting to your paper and how they feel and what your brush feels like and what it feels like to make a circle and what it feels like to make a square. And wow, okay. I jumped really fast here. I would have liked to gradually add more black, so let's see what we can do. Maybe I'll start with black. Yeah, that jumped really, really quickly. I'm gonna see if I can back it up a little, but let's see. Ooh, this is like midnight blue with black. But these are like super dark. So those are called tones. I'm sorry, gray is the tone. These are called shades when you add black to color. So you have tints when you add white, and you have shades when you add black. And then if you pull this back, you'll have this full range of variations on the royal blue, which is pretty interesting, I think. And then remember that the lighter blue shapes are going to be look bigger, and that the darker blue shapes are going to look darker. And then before I leave you, you can do the same exercise with red. So start with pure red. I'd love to see what the pure red in this set looks like. Ah, good, because in the palette, it looks almost brown, but the minute you wet it, it changes, which is a big thing with watercolors. They really change when you add, they look really different before you add water to them. So they usually look way darker than they are. So when you look at a palette, don't be misled. The colors you see in the palette aren't the colors you're going to see on paper. And that takes some getting used to. So here's a pure red. Ooh, let's add it to some of the light blue. Think how much fun you can have just doing this. Let's add it to some of the blackish blue. Ooh, it's like a plum. Oh my gosh. It's so fun. Just trying to add it to the colors we already created today. I'm going to go back. It's interesting what happens is you're seeing colors that are similar but slightly different. And you can kind of train your eye to be like, oh, this one has gray in it. Oh, this one has black in it. Oh, this one has blue in it. Oh, this one doesn't have blue in it. This one is only red. The only pure red we have on this page right now is there. actually, which is cool. It's really cool because it's good to develop your eye for like what it takes to make a color and how adding red affects a blue, how adding black affects a red, etc., etc., etc. You get all these different color feelings, different color looks. You know, how do they feel emotionally? So colors with blue in them are often called cool colors. There's an iciness to it. They also visually tend to recede on the page. And colors like red, yellow, and orange are known as hot colors because visually they tend to move towards you and come at you on the page. Oh, what am I going to finish off with? These are starting to look almost all the same, although when they dry, they might actually not be so much all the same. This one's quite different. I'm going to mix it into there. The more I put on the page, the more information I have to like process and the more variations. It's very, very interesting to me just to respond to all these. And again, that's all without adding water. So if I add water, you know, I get a washy, sheer vibe, which also gives a variation from light to dark. And notice again how the lighter end moves towards you and that the darker end falls back in space. So visually, what is light or white tends to look like it's in front, and what's darker tends to look like it's behind. Like you're more likely to think of this white square as being on top of this gray square, and you're more likely to think of this black square as being like a hole in the gray square.